The topic that I will be presenting today is improving the developer experience with TypeScript and Apollo. So this will be a simple talk where we will be using a React application, and we will be discussing that how we can get a better development experience while writing our queries and mutations in GraphQL. So moving on, the topics that we will be looking today are what are the pitfalls and errors that we could face without types. So if we are writing a simple application, what could be the errors that we face when we do not have any type checking? The second point we will explore is how can we use TypeScript to make our code better. So we will be writing types and we will be seeing how those types will help us. Finally, we will leverage the type safety without writing types by hand. So even if you have little to no knowledge of TypeScript, you can use this experience and get all the static type checking. So let's move forward. Now, with an initial introduction of GraphQL. So GraphQL is a query language for our API. It's different in REST from the sense that whatever we are describing our data in, we get the same data back. So here I want project, the name, tagline, and contributors. And if I just require the tagline, I get the predictable result back directly in JSON. So whatever I specify here, in the same format, I will be receiving the result again. So this is how easy it is to query our data in GraphQL. So that's what predictable response was. And finally, a great documentation. So we will look at the GraphQL Playground as well, how we can get a good documentation of our entire API. So let's take a basic scenario. We have created our React application with create React app using the TypeScript template, as we will be using TSX files. Our backend GraphQL API is this API made by Trevor Blades. It's an open API. So this API is available and it's open to all. So let's check out the schema later. Then we have Apollo client. So Apollo client will make our queries from the front end to this API. And let's check the data of this API. So let me go to the docs. And here we have our queries. So what we are interested in right now is the countries query. So the countries query gives us a list of countries, and the country has these many properties inside. And all these properties have types. So name is a string, capital is a string, currency is a string. So all of these are typed. So whenever we write a query like this in the playground, and on running this query, we can see that we get the list of countries back in the same format as we requested them. So I have requested for name, currency, and emoji, and I get the same data back. So if I remove this and query, it won't come back. So this is how easy it is to query in GraphQL. And based on the schema we have, we also get auto completion. So if I want the details, I can directly get them. So I can directly select the emoji as well, and I will get that. So it's that easy. So let's move on to the practical example. Suppose we have a client and our client likes this API which we have created, and they want us to query these countries and show them in a list. So let's start with that. So a basic application I have created here is the app component, where we have a simple HTML markup here, and we have the countries component. Let's look at the countries component in detail. So currently this is empty, and we will be filling that as we go forward. We just have a simple markup which returns countries, but let's write a query for this. So let's display the list of countries first. So let me copy this query so that we can use it. And let us write our first query. So I've written the query, and now let us use it in the use query hook. So we are using the latest version of React, and let's use hooks as well to fetch our data. So Apollo provides us with a use query hook that we can pass our query. So let's pass our query, fetch countries. So now whenever we pass this query, we get three things: a loading state, an error, if there's an error, and the final data. So let's guard the loading and error states. And now let's write some logic for the data. So I will be displaying this in a list. Right now you can see that I am not getting any IntelliSense or code completion because we do not have any types at all. And let's print out the country.currency as well. And as there are lots of countries, let's keep it down to 10 so that it's easily visible on the screen. So let's run this application. So I have created a command just for the same. So this will open up a React application. And as you can see now, the list of countries will be visible shortly. So yes, we had our loading state and we have the countries along with the currencies. So this was a simple example of how we could display our data. But it's not that great as far as development is concerned because I'm not getting any IntelliSense or code completion. So what comes in the country object? What are the properties? I do not know. I just have to type these and know by myself. So let's add some TypeScript for now, as I had mentioned. So let's create some types. So I'll create a type. And this type will be my object that will contain the list of countries. So let me create a country type as well. So we all know that name, currency, and emoji are present. Now our data will consist of an object called countries. And this will be an array. So we have a list of countries here. And how do I pass this data so that I get some sort of IntelliSense and code completion? So for that, we have use query. Use query has an argument, which is known as templates, or you can call them generic arguments as well. So we can directly pass our data type here. And as you can see, when I pass this, I hover over this argument and I get the object back. So this is how we can pass this type and we can get IntelliSense. So now if I want to type anything, yes, I have it. I have these three properties: country, emoji, and name. So let's add some better formatting as well. So now as I save this, everything works well. Everything works fine. So this was how we could add types so that we get some IntelliSense and code completion in our application. But as you can see, it is quite tedious. It's not very intuitive, like there's no automated way. We always have to add our types. And what happens if we need to remove the emoji in a future release? Like if the client says that I do not want the emoji, I remove the emoji, but I still get it in the types here. If I type currency here, I still get the emoji. Oh, sorry, it was country. So I'm still getting the emoji here, which is incorrect. So what do we have to do? We have to remove the emoji from our types because we have removed it from our GraphQL query. So as we remove this type, we can see that we get an error. But this is quite a manual process for us and not at all intuitive. And it is too much of a time-taking process as well. So is there a better way to perform this? Yes, there is. So we have GraphQL code generator for that. So let's look at what is GraphQL code generator. So it is a library that creates our TypeScript types from our schema. So as you can see here that this is an example schema that we have, and it converts this into types using a configuration file. So we have to specify a configuration file in YAML, and on running the CLI, it will convert these into types. So we can use these TypeScript types directly in our application. So let's look at how the configuration file is and how it works. So first of all, I'll show you my package.json where I have installed these scripts. So these are the main scripts that we require. So first of all, we have our CodeGen CLI. The CLI is important, which will be helping us to create our types. And these are the plugins that we have. So we have a TypeScript plugin. We have the Apollo client plugin because we are using the Apollo library, and I'm using version 3 of the client. Also, we have a type document node. So this will create an entire GraphQL interface that will be mapped to TypeScript, and you will get all the types generated automatically. Now, how this is specified, let's check in the config.yml. So this is the codegen.yml file in which I have specified some properties. So the main property is the schema here. So this schema is the URL that we have of our application, of our backend application. So this can be anything, like this is our application here, which hits this API. So this can be your own backend application as well. Then we have something called documents. Now, what are documents? So I have specified a path here, which has GraphQL, and it specifies all the GraphQL files. So in these GraphQL files, we will be writing our queries, mutations, subscriptions, whatever. And based on these files, it will generate for us an entire TypeScript object, which we can pass to our query. So let's see how that works as well. Finally, we have the generate block. The generate block contains an output file. So this file will be generated, the type documents nodes. This will be the name of the file. And these are the plugins that we are using. So as I had mentioned in the package.json, we had these plugins installed, and we will be using the same plugins here. So TypeScript, type document node, and TypeScript operations. So these are the important parts of our configuration. So let's see how we can generate this. If I open my package.json, I have created a script here called generate schema. What this does is this invokes the GraphQL CodeGen CLI, passes the config, that is our codegen.yaml, and it'll create a typed object for us in this generated folder. I have already created this, but let's run it again. So it will be yarn generate schema. Let's see how that works. So it passes our configuration, and it has generated the output in this folder. Let's open this folder and see what is generated. So there is a lot of stuff here. We won't go through all of this, but basically it's what we have in our GraphQL schema. This is our query, in which we have all the queries that were listed in our GraphQL API. Let me open the docs to show you that as well. So this is all the continents, countries, languages, everything comes here. And finally, we have the types as well in TypeScript. Let me show you that. See, these types are exactly as it is here. This is what we were typing manually, which was very time-taking and error-prone. What this has is this simply lists all the values that we have in our schema right here. So we have the name as a string, the currency as a string, the emoji as a string. This has the same values as well here. All the properties listed are present here. And finally, at the end, we will be able to see our query. This is a fetch countries document. So this contains something known as document node, which is a TypeScript type. And this will be passed to our use query function. So we will see how that works. And we have passed this fetch countries query, in which we have our name, currency, and emoji. Now, where is this query coming from? I had specified something in the CodeGen YAML that there are some documents in the src GraphQL folder. Let's check that out. And I have specified this in our countries.graphql. So this is the fetch countries query. I'm specifying these three properties, and codegen.yaml takes this as a parameter and generates this as the output. So whatever I pass in my GraphQL files mentioned in this folder, it will automatically be generated here. Now let's see how we can use this in our application. So I just need to import this. So I think the type is fetch countries document. Yes. So let me import this. So as you can see, this is imported from the generate folder and the type document nodes file. So let's see. Let's save this and run our application again. As you can see here, there's no change at all. The output is as it is. And let's add the emoji here as well for a better output. And here we have it. So these are the properties that are available to us directly. So if I check the country object, I can see that I have these three properties. These three properties are available directly from our type document node file, which was generated. We have all these three properties available here because we have taken these three exactly. Now let's check what happens if we want to change. So suppose we do not require the emoji at all. Let's remove that as well. So from my GraphQL file, I will just remove this, and in a while I will be able to see, and you can see that VS Code automatically gives us an error that this property doesn't exist. Why? Because this was automatically generated, and you can see here that the emoji property has been removed. So this is how we get real-time IntelliSense and code completion. I can just put this back and it will be the same again. So why is this happening? This is because we have kept a watcher. So GraphQL config.js also has a watch argument. This will automatically watch your files, and it will automatically take in the changes based on whatever you pass in. So which is why whenever we pass this and update our application, it will automatically update the types, and we get real-time code completion and IntelliSense here. And which is why we can come to know directly in the editor itself that such properties do not exist, or what we have is incorrect. So I will never mistype any property. It will automatically tell me that this is not correct. So as you can see, let's remove this unwanted code. So I do not need my data. I do not need my country type. I do not need this as well, because that is automatically written in my GraphQL file. So you can see here how many less amount of imports we require and how much less typing we had to do. So for someone who is a beginner in TypeScript or who has little to no knowledge, can easily use this without any external validation. They can directly write the query and get IntelliSense and code completion in their editor without going and looking at the schema as well. You can just say that I want the countries and I want the name, currency, and the emoji, and it will automatically generate that for you. So basically, this was the entire premise of how we can use TypeScript and how the developer can access the safety of TypeScript. And you feel connected to the backend as well as the front end with the entire application being type safe. So whatever comes from the backend is the same as whatever you get on the front end. The types are the same, the experience is the same. So that was all for my talk. And I hope you liked it. And for any queries, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, dev.to, and LinkedIn. And the code and the slides are in a GitHub repo, so I will be sharing that as well. So thank you everyone for listening.